do we have a special treat for you guys today. So, this has been something that I've struggled with for many, many years until a handful of years ago, where I started to get schooled, so to speak, on understanding how my brain works and how I can't make a cold call. I can't door knock. I mean, I guess I could physically do it, but I can't do it. My head doesn't let me do it. So, guys, today we have Ashley Harwood with us. Ashley Harwood and I connected recently, and her specialty is coaching real estate agents who are introverts. It actually exists. I can't believe it. Welcome, Ashley. Good morning.
Thank you. It does exist. It's like the M&M Santa commercial.
So literally, Ashley has created a business around this because, also being an introvert, she realized that there is a need in this industry that we both work and play in, because we're not all programmed the same. So the quick background is, recently I kind of stumbled on Ashley's contact information. We connected, and it's always great speaking with a fellow introvert. And by the way, I know you guys are thinking there's no way Greenblatt's an introvert the way he's coming across here. I'm telling you, it has nothing to do with being able to do this. It's a whole different mechanism. So we connected and we started chatting and realized that there's a lot of stuff, a lot of training, a lot of reading that we've done together. But fortunately, Ashley has really organized this stuff and has committed herself and her company to helping agents create successful businesses without door knocking, because you can't do that. Isn't that right, Ashley?
Right. You can, but you don't have to. A lot of us don't want to.
Yeah, it's true. We were, right before we came on here, guys, we were talking about contact information. I said, "Hey, Ashley, do you want anyone? Should I put your phone number up here?" And she goes, "No need to, because an introvert's not going to call me." And it is so true. It is so true that we tend not to want to make calls. I'm good calling people that I know, but I'm certainly not good calling people I don't know. Yeah. So we wanted to take a few minutes today and talk about one element of her program, which is managing draining activities. So whether you're an introvert or extrovert out there watching this, we all get energy from different things, right? We all get energy from certain things, and energy gets taken away from us doing different things. So we were talking about this recently. We said, let's go out there and let's talk to everybody about this, because if you tend to be more on the introvert spectrum, and remember, it's not an on-off switch, guys, right? There's extroverts, there's introverts, and it's a continuum. So nobody is all everything all the time, all one thing all the time. So we're talking about that. And, Ashley has some great insight into how we work and how we operate, and obviously setting us up for success in real estate. Ashley, what are some things that make us tired, takes energy away from us as introverts, which may be very different, or some people may or may not realize at all?
Yeah. It's slightly different for everyone. I've talked to a lot of agents at this point, and some themes that seem to come up, draining things that we all find, most of us find draining anyway. The phone calls, any sort of feeling like you're selling something rather than being in consultant mode, that's draining. I had someone recently tell me in one of my workshops, listing appointments were draining. And that was a huge aha for me, because I have always found listing appointments and buyer consults, both of them, to be very draining. And somehow, even after all these years of doing this work and talking about this stuff, I had not made the connection to, put that in my slide, in my PowerPoint, as one of my top draining activities, when it totally is. Appointments with people, even one-on-one, when you feel like you're on, that is very draining. A lot of times people are drained by their families. True. That's always an interesting one, because there's a lot of guilt around that. But just because something is draining doesn't mean it's bad, or even that you don't, want to be around it or love these people. They can still be your favorite people and be very draining. So it's a lot.
Yeah. So listing appointments, buyer's consults, kind of the same category as a real estate agent. When we have to get our brains working that quickly, because I believe, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, I believe that introverted people tend to like to think more than talk in general. We like to think, we like to process. We are very careful not to interrupt other people when they're talking because we are processing more. So in that regard, that is a huge strength that introverted agents have, because we listen, and then we process and we speak back. Listing appointments can be exhausting. I can tell you that I know that if I have 2 listing appointments in a day, even if they're spread out, first of all, they really need to be spread out. I need some kind of break. If they're really in the same neighborhood, I still spread them out and go find a parking lot at a local school or somewhere, or Wawa around here, and just park just to catch up on email and clear my head. Because I look at it as an audition. Most listing appointments to me, I look at it as an audition. And for any of you guys watching that have ever been in the performing arts, well, then I hope to get a call back, right? I hope to get offered that opportunity, or at least get a call back for a second audition. So it takes, going into it, I know that I like, and I'm sure most agents watching this like to give it their all. I'm sure when you've gone on listing appointments, you want to make sure that you have the best performance possible, but putting that performance out there is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting to keep. I know my personal experience is to keep my brain working that quickly for that period of time, whether it's a half hour to 90 minutes, give or take, depending on the appointment, it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah.
A lot of energy.
And you're usually juggling a lot of things. You're juggling what you're going in there thinking you're going to say. And then once you see the house, how that changes, what your valuation is in your brain, how that's going to change. And then, don't get me started if they have a dog that comes and jumps on you the first thing. And then you're like,
that doesn't bother me. That actually warms me up.
Oh, I hate it. It's so bad. And then you have to be nice and be like, oh, it's okay that they're ruining my jeans. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if it's messy, but that's just part of, you don't know what you're walking into at any moment, right?
Right.
No idea. And that's exhausting too, right? So
all these layers of things that your brain is juggling at once while still trying to be professional and polite and build rapport and figure out where you can make a joke and, all these different layers.
So it doesn't matter in a listing appointment, because let's pick on that for a minute. If you walk in and you're dealing with one person versus a couple with 3 kids and 2 dogs, does that affect you differently when you were an active agent?
No, the number of people didn't make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I think though that there is a threshold for introverts, because if you take another extreme, let's say you're invited to a wedding, right, this weekend, and there's a couple hundred people there, that's a whole different experience.
Right.
Right. So one of the big tests in this world of where do you fall on this continuum is, hey, at the end of this big event, wedding, I don't know, any kind of large event with lots of people, convention, at the end of that, after spending several hours in that environment, the question then becomes, if you take a step back, you go, how do you feel, right? Ashley, are you energized at the end of that event, or are you exhausted at the end of that event?
No, I'm exhausted. I want to go to bed and not talk to anyone for 2 days.
Yep, exactly right. That's exactly right. But people that are programmed differently may want to go out for drinks and still go to another event, or participate in something. And it doesn't. And it's not. This has nothing to do with the clock, right? We're not talking about necessarily something that ends at 1 a.m. where everyone's physically tired or should be at 1 o'clock in the morning. It could be something that happens in the afternoon, but it's this stimulation of everything around us that can make us extremely tired and just sap our energy.
Yeah. A good example that I like to use, I love your wedding example. I actually have used that a couple times since I heard it from you. I love it. One that's like midday for people is a big networking event, like a Chamber of Commerce event or B&I. First thing in the morning, you have 50 people and you have to get up and speak in front of all these people and then make chit chat. Even something like that, I find those activities very draining.
Okay, let's beat that one up for a second. That's a great example. So you talked about getting up in front of people and talking, which you've done. I've done it when I've taught. Is there a difference between, from an energy standpoint, of getting up in front of 100 people, not a crazy crowd, 100 people, versus being in a room networking with 100 people? Is there a difference?
Yes, there is a difference. For me, the difference is when I'm speaking in front of a group of people, I know what I'm going to say. I've written my material, I've practiced, I'm good, I'm confident. Sometimes I'll ask for questions, but I invite questions in if and when I want them. And so it's a more controlled environment for me versus a networking event where it's just kind of a free for all. You don't know who you're going to end up talking to. I find those to be more draining because I have to be on in a different way. It's more unpredictable than getting up and giving the same talk that I've given, 100 times.
100% agree with you. 100%. I could get up and I could talk to hundreds of people about a topic I'm passionate about, usually real estate related. I'm great with that. I don't have any issue with that. I don't get anxiety. And that's a big, by the way, there's a nuance here. A lot of people think that being introverted and being shy are kind of the same, and they're really not. They're very, very different. A shy person couldn't get up on stage and talk to a crowd of people. But having to bounce around a room and talk to lots of different people about lots of different things can be extremely exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's also the aspect of the meat of the conversation. When you and I get up in front of a crowd and speak, we're talking about things of substance. When you're in a room networking, it's usually very surface level small talk. And that's so exhausting for most introverts that I know.
True. Oh my God. Oh my God. It's so good. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That is so true. So guys, anybody watching this, keep this in mind too. If you already know this about yourself, awesome. If you don't, and some of the stuff we're sharing, please give us a thumbs up or a like. It's so true. The small talk, things that we're not genuinely excited about or interested in for an introvert, whether it's us or anybody out here, right? It's very, very tiring. And that is a huge point. Thank you so much for bringing that up. That's what makes big social events potentially extremely tiring, like a wedding where you're talking about someone's vacation. And don't take this wrong. It's not that an introvert doesn't care, but if they're not excited about it, it actually it empties our tank, right, having to come up with stuff. But talk to an introverted person about something that they care about. So in our case, it's real estate related, right? Mm-hmm. You corner me somewhere or corner Ashley somewhere and engage a conversation about real estate, we'll light up and we'll go all day, and it doesn't really take much to do that because it's just an intrinsic energy that comes out. At the end, we're tired, but that energy is there to keep going. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why for large networking events, I go into them with the intention of I'm going to meet a lot of people and try to get out of the conversation as quickly as possible and make that determination. Do I want to take this person's card and follow up and have coffee with them? Because that's where the substantial conversation for me usually happens, is afterwards. So in a big room, my goal is not to connect on a deep level with a lot of people. It's just to like figure out, okay, who do I want to have the second audition with, to use your lingo.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. So you're basically like getting a feel for who that person is, and then just deciding from after that. So you have some scripting in your mind on how to break that conversation after you've had enough, I guess, without hurting someone's feelings, and
Yeah.
then processing later and deciding, okay, am I going to follow up with this person about whatever this is that we've engaged about, probably something real estate related, and based on that, you would hope that that one-on-one then becomes much more meaningful.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we've read a lot of the same books as we've learned from chatting recently. That's a big thing with introverted people too. We want to have meaningful connections. One of the biggest misconceptions is that an person who tends to be more introverted could appear aloof to
Right.
I'm sure we've read that in some of that material that we both
I've
studied.
experienced it. I've been accused of it. It's okay.
Yeah, me too. And it's not that, right? It's not, you're not aloof. You're just not necessarily interested in what's going on over there right now. It doesn't mean that you're aloof. It just doesn't work for you as a human.
It's not worth the expenditure of energy. That's how I look at it.
Oh, it's true. Oh, absolutely true. And because you're tuned in to what takes your energy away, right? So we know crowds, meetings, for some of us, being in areas that have lots of noise or loud noises, right? That's another thing that takes energy away. So a concert, a concert might be enjoyable, but I think it depends on the environment and how long the concert is. There might be a limit to how long you could go.
How much you want to see that band. If you're kind of ambivalent about them, I'm out. I'm not going. It's not worth it because I only have a finite amount of energy and I know where I want to spend it.
What was the last concert you went to?
I have no idea. I don't go to concerts.
It's been years, right? Yeah. Since something like that. Yeah, I totally understand.
Matchbox 20, maybe, when I was like 13. I don't
know. Matchbox 20. Yeah, that was a while ago. They've been gone for a while, I think. At least not, no famous songs that I'm aware of. That's great. How about, what about a venue like, it's not music, maybe it's stage play, not even a musical, stage play, or seeing a comedian? Is that something that you would do?
Yeah, those are fun. I used to go to the Comedy Store in LA all the time when I lived there. I would just go by myself too. And that was always a lot of fun.
It's actually in some ways more enjoyable to go by yourself, right?
Yeah. Then I don't have to be aware of this other person next to me and what he thinks is funny. And it's just, I can do my thing and enjoy and not have to worry about anybody else.
All right. So here's a test for you. Think of some times that you went, right? Let's say the doors opened at 8. I don't know, wherever it was, right? If the doors opened at 8, what time did you get there?
Usually got there half hour before, parked. I want to be the first one in the room.
Yep.
Pick where I'm sitting. Usually they tell you where you're sitting. But still, I want to get there first. And for some reason, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable regardless of the setting or situation.
100%. You passed that test. That was that question, guys. We didn't rehearse this, by the way. Whoever's watching this, we didn't rehearse this. That was a test. So that was a test because, again, anybody watching this that's trying to learn more about themselves and how they're programmed, real estate or not, those kind of venues or events, whether it's going to see a comedy show or going to a wedding, going to a movie theater, you will find that it's more comfortable for you if you go early, not hours early, just early enough where you can walk in, you can see the room, and you could find an area of the room that makes you comfortable.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
100%. Every one-on-one meeting I've ever had that takes place in a Panera, I'm there half hour early because I want the booth that I want.
Totally. Panera for sure. Definitely want a booth. Definitely want it to be in a corner somewhere. Definitely don't want one of those open tables.
Oh,
It's not cozy enough. The
oh,
open tables,
I hate it. Those tables are for the extroverts.
right? Right. Exactly. Because they're hoping they're going to see somebody they know.
Right. I
We're
want to
hoping
hide in the booth and not see anyone I know.
we're hoping we don't see anybody we
And my
know.
giant coat, I put it up like a wall shield.
All right. So we talked about stuff that takes our energy away. Ashley, talk to me about how do we get our energy back?
So the things I hear most frequently, the themes, spending time in nature, exercise, basically anytime you're alone, which is kind of hard to do sometimes, especially in real estate, especially if you're in real estate and you have a family at home, you don't live alone. So those are kind of the overall themes that I hear. And they're true. For me, if I get myself to a yoga class, I feel so much better. Taking a nap is a big one. I feel like we underutilize naps as a society, at least in this country.
True. Yeah, that's true. So that's interesting. You mentioned exercise. I'm a strong believer exercise every day, some way, somehow. But you mentioned yoga class. So there you go. Then you're interacting with people, right?
No,
Well, they're there.
they're there. I'm not talking to them.
You're not talking, but you're feeling their
I'm the
presence.
rude, aloof person. And in that class, I don't care
Interesting.
because I don't want to talk to them. The only reason I go to the class versus doing yoga in my home is because I get a much better workout when there are other people there and there's the instructor and I can't like just sit down and stop whenever I want. So it's the accountability piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that makes perfect sense. Going out in nature. So the exercise piece, I totally believe in that. Years ago, I used to belong to gyms, and over time, we basically built a home gym in our house, even though my wife is really not an introvert, but there's a comfort level with it being in your house. That's a whole separate discussion. I used to take a lot of group classes like spin classes and all that. And in hindsight, and this goes back years and years, as much as I loved being on a bike, the spin class was mentally tough for me just because you had all these, and this is all before COVID, of course, you had all these bikes like lined up, like all around you and all these people and a lot of rah-rah stuff, which rah-rah stuff is tough for us.
Yeah, that's way too intimidating for me. I've never been to spin class. You'll never see me in a spin class. That's why I like yoga, because it's very calm. It's focused inward. It's not focused on what anyone else is doing. Just breathe and do your thing. And they actually tell you to not pay attention to anyone else, which is helpful.
So yeah, I wonder if you did a survey, if you tried to, survey people who are really into taking yoga on a regular basis, where they fall on the spectrum of introvert to extrovert. Be interesting to know. Are there just more introverts in a yoga class in general because it's very peaceful and calming?
Could be. Or the extroverts are the ones who are over here in the class, like talking to each other.
That's true.
And I'm in the corner because I got there early to get my corner spot. And I'm like, you guys, please don't talk to me.
Yeah, that's such a valid point. There were a few months ago, there was a local real estate event here, and I knew about it weeks ahead of time. It was on my calendar. I had registered for it. It was something that I was asked. I wasn't on the panel, but I was asked to be there personally, just because my presence was important at this event. And I got a little sidetracked in the hours leading up to it with just regular business stuff that was arguably out of my control that I just had to deal with. And I was dealing with it in the car on the way there and got stuck on the phone in the parking lot. And at that point, you know where this is going. At that point, I was probably 20 or 25 minutes late into something that was going to last a few hours. So I knew there's still plenty of time.
Mm-hmm.
I get out of the car. I'm walking into the building. I'm familiar with the building. I'm walking down the hall. I'm going to where this event is. And I see the room. One of the doors to the room is open. I see everybody sitting there. I see the panel up there, and I know a lot of these people. I know panelists. I know a lot of the agents that are sitting there. I couldn't walk in. I couldn't walk in. I talked myself right out of it. And then I had to step aside and deal with whatever it was at the time that I was dealing with, some fire I had to put out. And I tried again. And I kind of listened in and I talked myself out of walking in. I'm like, well, I don't really need to be there, you know? And I talked myself out of it and I didn't go. And in hindsight, I know exactly what happened. I'm not proud of it, but I understand it. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think that all of us have experienced that at times. Had I been on time, it would have been so much easier. And again, that's energy too, right? So had it been potentially a different day or a different time of that day, I may have had higher energy and it would have been easier for me to walk into that room if I was late. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. It sounds like the problems you were dealing with in the car those were actively draining your energy, making it even harder to get in. And then add on top of that the fact that you were running late, you couldn't get there early like you wanted. Yeah. I haven't had a situation exactly like that. However, I have had situations where I get to the parking lot and I'm like, nope, this is not worth it. And then I turn around and leave.
Yeah.
And it's totally an energy thing, and it's completely dependent on the day and what else has happened in my day. And that's why this self-awareness is so important for people, so that they can make those decisions. And if you find yourself skipping an event, it's okay. I just hope that it wasn't a super important event. And if it was, then it's important to plan the day leading up to the important thing so that you have the energy to deal with it.
Oh man, that is so valid, right? So you're right. It was probably the series of events, whatever I was dealing with on that day, that sucked my energy out or took me to a level where I didn't have enough left in the tank to walk into that room. And it's such a valid point. So again, you guys that are watching this that can relate to this, because I know a lot of you can, plan it accordingly, right? So in the future, I'm going to do a better job at that. I'm going to manage my time, my energy bank better. Now, that event was important, but not something that I would get scolded for not attending, right? So you know, there's going to be differences there too. If that was let's say I was on the panel.
If you were on the panel, then yeah, you should have planned your day a whole different way, but
right.
So it wasn't like as high a priority.
Exactly. When something becomes a super high priority, I think all of us, I don't care how your mind works, you're going to figure out a way to make it happen, right? You're not going to pull up to a client's house for a listing appointment and not get out of the car, although maybe some of you have, but I know I wouldn't. I'm going to muster up that energy no matter what it means. And oftentimes it's getting started is the hardest point, because once you're in that room, once you're talking to that listing client, even if it was tough for you to go walk up to that front door with a confirmed appointment, once you get going, I know with me, it gets easier, right? Yeah. The first 2 minutes of going on Facebook Live is a little tough. 5 minutes into it, it's easy, right? It's a conversation.
Once you're into it. And then afterwards, I usually feel completely drained. And so for me, one thing I have to watch out for myself is to make sure that I don't drain my energy too much throughout the course of the day and any evening activities to the point where I can't drive myself home safely.
Wow. So you have felt that you've gotten to that point?
I felt it once when it was so surreal. And that was one networking event that I chose to skip because I knew that if I had gone to it and talked to even just one person, I probably would have fallen asleep in the car and like crashed my car. So I'm like, I have two choices. I have enough energy to get myself home or to go to this event, and I need to go home.
So what would go on during the course of a day that could, obviously this is energy draining for us. We've talked about that. We know that and we know that we both need time before our next commitment, right? Today to kind of recharge briefly. But what would a day look like for you, Ashley? Let's talk about for a second where, by 6 o'clock tonight or 6 o'clock the evening of that given day, you're wiped out. Like you've got nothing left. Doesn't matter who's calling or texting you. You can't engage dialogue. What does that day look like? That just takes everything away. Just an example.
I wish I could remember exactly for that day, but an example would be I didn't sleep well the night before. Mm-hmm. So I wake up not as great, energetically as I normally would. Go to networking and meeting first thing in the morning, like a breakfast or BNI. Have a couple of one-on-one meetings individually. Go get my booth in Panera. Maybe I had to give somebody some bad news. Maybe I found out my buyer didn't get their offer accepted, or I had a tough negotiation with an inspection, just dealing with somebody who is not, maybe the other co-broke wasn't, very nice to me or whatever. Maybe then I had a buyer consult, just a full day of other people and combination of me being on and having to shift gears and some small talk and just all these different pieces. Probably didn't eat enough either. Mm-hmm. Go all day without a break. Mm-hmm. And that's what would lead me to that point.
Yeah, I could totally relate to that. Right. It's a combination. It's not necessarily one activity that drains you. Right. If you look back at your day, you can go, it was a combination of the activities and maybe they were so close together and there was no activity that actually put energy back in. It was all activities that took energy out throughout the day with no time to recharge at all. I totally, I know that there's times where I come home at the end of day or evening and I would literally, especially when my boys were younger, I would say, I'm not taking any questions. No questions. Thank you. Save all your questions. I can't talk. Like I literally can't, other than hello, I love you kind of thing. Right. I can listen a little bit, but I'm not going to give any feedback on anything because there's nothing left in the tank.
Yeah.
It's food. It's stress. Stress will do that. Mean people will do that. And then big events, networking events, starting the day with a networking event is tough, but going to a networking event in the evening is tough too, because it's easy not to go.
I feel like that's what it was that day is I had one in the morning and I had one at night and I was all excited that I was going to do both. It didn't happen.
Yeah. Yep. You see it on the calendar, you see all those blocks. Yeah. And for some reason, the next day you look back and you go, yeah, I just couldn't do all those blocks.
Yeah, it's too many blocks. That's why I teach time blocking and color coding the calendar so you can look and make sure that your calendar is not full of too many draining activities and without any breaks.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap this up. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, Ashley Harwood is a professional real estate coach who focuses on introverts. In a couple of weeks, on the 2nd, she is starting another group coaching program. The links and all the information is right down below in the comments. A group coaching program for moveoverextroverts.com. I can't believe this exists. This is like, I'm like a kid in a candy store every time we chat about this because it's wild. So if you are trying to understand yourself, you think you might fall a little bit more on the introvert versus extrovert continuum, and you still want to be a successful real estate agent, definitely connect with Ashley. I learned this the hard way. Total introvert here. I had to figure it out. My contact information is down there too. If you guys want to chat about anything real estate related, again, I could talk about that. Don't tell me about your trip to Hawaii because I'm just probably not that interested. But definitely connect with Ashley to learn more about what her group coaching program can offer you and how she can help set you guys up for success. Ashley, any closing words here or anything you want to share with everybody?
Thank you so much for having me. Just watch your energy, guys. Start bringing that awareness. And we didn't talk about lists, but make a couple lists. Make a list for yourself of things that drain your energy, and then make a list of things that replenish your energy. And then that's a good tool to start with.
Yep. You had mentioned it earlier. Self-awareness, really key. So as you become more self-aware, you will be able to manage your energy level better. And believe me, there's a ton of us out there. There's a ton of successful real estate agents out there. And COVID has actually made it a little easier for us in some ways, right? A lot of us work from home. I run my team right from my house. I'm in an extra bedroom. So it has worked really well for me and my team and countless others out there. I mean, countless. So because going to an office is energy draining for a lot of us too.
Yes.
Small talk. So Ashley, once again, thank you so much, Ashley Harwood, for joining us this morning. Again, contact information below, and we'll see you soon, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you.